you doing?
Hey, Michael. Sorry, Rob and Michael, yeah.
Hey, how are you?
There we go.
Doing good, thanks, and you?
Oh,
Good.
not bad. Let me bring some stuff up here. Thanks for joining us, Angelo. And we have, what is this? I'm sorry. Trying to figure out why I suddenly got. Okay. So he just sent me an invite for a meeting right now. It's like, no, I don't think I'm going to pick that one up. Um, Sorry. Let's see. Thanks for joining us. And we are going to do, the way we do this is it is really more of a conversational kind of thing than um, like a straight up interview or anything like that. I'll introduce myself. I'll start the episode, introduce myself. Michael will introduce himself. I'll toss it to you to introduce yourself. And then really from there, we're just going to dive right on in. Whenever we do it, it's always been um, almost always just from the start. We get, from your introduction, we get a couple of good questions out of it, and then we just keep on going from there.
Great, sounds good. I'm at
Okay.
Your audio cut out there for a moment.
already. Okay. Is it all right
Yeah.
now?
Nope. There you go. Now,
That's better. There we go. Yeah, it was a little
Where
low.
about in the States, you guys?
I'm in the Nashville area, Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay. And
and
Michael?
I'm in between Nashville and Memphis. I'm in Jackson, Tennessee, or just south of Jackson.
Okay, all right. Nice.
And where are you at?
I'm in Cape Town, South Africa.
Oh, okay. So,
Yeah,
yeah, is
far
it
away.
2 in the afternoon, 3 in the afternoon there?
Six in the
6.
afternoon.
Oh, it's that far.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. You guys are way further east than I thought. So, all right. So, sorry, I'm just bringing all my stuff up. Let me get a little different lighting here. This should help a little bit. There we go. Let's see. Let me get rid of this. Um, let's try this. Geez, I don't know when that's gonna happen. Let's try that. Oh, geez, I hate it when people like pop stuff up on my calendars and such right as I'm stepping into a call. Let's see. So audio's good, Michael?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
How do I sound?
Good, good. So, all
Okay.
right.
Loud and clear.
I am recording, which is always a critical part of these things. Sometimes that doesn't happen, and that is not good. So we've got that going. Let me get my crap organized a little bit here. So I've got my workspace. All right, and we are going to go in 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome back. We are continuing our season of Building Better Foundations. We are the Building Better Developers podcast, also known as Developreneur. I am only known as Rob Broadhead, one of the founders of Developreneur and also the founder of RB Consulting, where we help you assess your technology, clean out your junk drawer there, and build a roadmap for success. Good things, bad things. Good thing is by the time when you're seeing this, because we record this a little bit ahead of the game, I am going to be past a flurry of doing a lot of crap to simplify my life and go down to about nothing and travel with simply a suitcase and a laptop. And probably by now, I am really enjoying that because right now, towards the end of it, I am tired of it. It is exhausting. The good thing is, as we record this, we are getting into towards the end of the year, a very full year, very much looking ahead and just really enjoying like what life has to give me at this point. It's one of those every day is full. It's exhausting to get to the end of it, but in a good way. Sort of like getting to the end of the introduction that Michael is about to give us. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, everyone. My name is Michael Malash. I'm one of the co-founders of Developreneur. I'm also the founder of Envision QA, where we create and test custom software that solves real-world problems, so your business runs better and scales smarter. Good thing, bad thing. Good thing. It's Rob said, we're recording this a little before the end of the year, getting into that time of the year where we'll be able to spend time with family and kick back and catch up on some video games and just relax a little bit, maybe watch some more Christmas episodes or feel good movies. Bad side, every day in Tennessee, it's a different weather day. It can be snowy, icy, warm. Yesterday was a gorgeous afternoon. And of course, this morning I go outside and it's like 25 degrees. So I'm ready for spring.
And today we are back with another interview, and we're going to start into a conversation with Angelo. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hey, buddy. Thanks for the intro, or the having me on the podcast. So I'm Angelo Zanetti. I'm the co-founder of Elemental. We're a web and software development company based all the way out in Cape Town, South Africa. So a lot of you know Elon Musk. He's our fellow countryman. So we build a lot of custom web apps, mobile apps, software. Been doing that for about 20 years. I originally was a developer, but no longer. I leave that to the sort of skilled people in my team. And I can touch on a little bit of a good thing and a bad thing. I think the good thing is it's great to be on this podcast. Good to share some insights with you guys and some discussions, and I'm looking forward to that. I think the bad thing is we're kind of winding down to the end of the year, but it's full steam ahead still. And yeah, people are always asking, how are you going? Are you preparing for holiday? Are you winding down? And I'm like, sheesh, that seems like a very far place right now. But I mean, there's a lot of positive things and there's good reason for that. But I think that's the sort of bad thing. But there will be a break at some point, which is much deserved. And, Rob, it sounds like you're going to have an amazing trip as well. So I think we all need to kick off a little bit at the end of the year.
Yeah, that is the thing. We always like that is the challenge of being in technology, it feels like, is that there's always that like push at the end of the year. And if you're lucky, if things work out, then you get like, you earn that week or two or however long you can get that little bit of a quiet period or maybe just a long weekend and then go from there. And then this year, 2025 is just one of those that it like Christmas and New Year's fall sort of in the middle of the week. And I think that just like messes stuff up a little bit more. So it just feels like there's not enough time to prepare, and there's just too much stuff that's got to get done between now and the holiday season. Let's dive right into the whole web and application world, because this is something that's like it's been around now web applications have been around for a few decades, and mobile apps have been around and a big thing for a good 15, probably 20 years almost. And it's gotten full. It's like, there's just certain areas, there is just a lot out there. If you go to like an app store or Google Play or something like that, there's just so much stuff out there. And all you see a lot of times is almost like the tip of the iceberg, because there's all the top ranking apps, and then you can go down and you can find just such a broad range of stuff. So how do you, particularly with your, if there's stuff you're developing or for your customers, like what are some ways to distinguish yourself within that busy and loud market?
Yeah, I think for the app stores, there's even a service that certain marketing companies offer where they offer app store optimization. I don't know what the exact term is, but I think it's really difficult to compete in that sort of those verticals on the app stores. I think you need to be driving downloads directly to your user base and your customer base, and I think it just comes down to the old adage of solve problems, really add value. I'm sure you guys also hear and see it, and there's so many new startups and tech products, and a lot of these products fail because there's no product market fit. They're solving problems that don't really exist, and there's a little bit of an ego play there. So if your product's really solving a problem and adding so much value, they're going to want to find your product, or you're going to market to that audience, and directly get people to the app stores to download your app. And then obviously web as well, SEO and, AI optimization, is also plays into that sort of role.
So that goes into, we've had a couple of conversations with that in recent discussions as well, about really like solving a problem. Make sure that you're giving a solution for a problem that people need to solve. Otherwise, they're probably not going to pay a lot of money for it. Now, when you're working with your customers, how do you enforce that? How do you work with your customers to sort of help them vet their product or to make sure that they are solving useful problems?
Yeah, that's more on the UX and usability side. So that's not something that we're involved with, but we do know that there are companies that will do user-based research. So they'll go and find sample sizes, they'll actually go and identify them, they'll do proper interviews, they'll record them, and then essentially gather that information and basically determine, from the output, is this actually something that people are willing to, pay for? Is it a solution that they're looking for? So it's not something that we do, but whenever we speak to people, I spoke to a guy today, someone I know, he wants to build some sort of app in the new year, and I said to him, like we can build you the best app. It can look great. It can, do all different types of functionality, but if you're not solving a problem, and keep it simple as well, but if you're not solving a problem that people are willing to pay for, or if you had to take your app away, would they feel a bit of pain? Would they sort of miss it? And that's sort of the test. But it's really difficult, because even these interviews, you can also go down a rabbit hole, and you can interview like 10 people, you can interview 100 people. I mean, you can do 1,000 people, but at some point you got to put something out there and really test, is there product market fit? Is there demand? Is there positive feedback? Or is there no traction whatsoever?
So one of the things that you mentioned that you guys are one of your strengths, I guess, of your company, one of the things values you add is building scalability from the start. And I find I'm really curious about that because there's a lot of people, especially in the app market, it feels like there's a lot of us like there's just that rush to market. There's just the like, let's get our website out, get our app out there, get in front of people, and then we'll come back later and worry about things like maintainability, scalability, and even stability. How do you do that, and how do you work that in with your conversations with your customers or your projects as you step into them?
Yeah, it's a great question. Um, So for me, scalability is two things, right? It's the ability to, be able to add more features to a product without the product having to be re-engineered. So we're not fans of, building something quickly, get it out, get some traction, spend money on that, and then, after 6 months or a year, can it and then rebuild the product. I think it's a waste of money for founders or whoever these tech owners are, tech product owners are. Um, so I think that even if the app is small, it's an MVP, I think you still need to have a lot of best practices, build a solid foundation, still think big, in terms of how this thing can grow, how the features can evolve, and build it properly, have a solid foundation to build on from the start, and then, in a year or 2 or 3 or 5 years time, it's still going to keep evolving, right? So I think that sort of deals with the sort of feature and functionality, scalability, and growth. And then the other side of the scalability is the data side, right? The usage, because obviously when you start, maybe you've got a few hundred users, a few thousand users, but we need to think about, how does this platform look when there's like hundreds of thousands or millions of users? What does that data look like? How is the database going to handle, what sort of cleanups do we need to do? What sort of technology and architecture do we need to do? And I think that's also very key to plan from the start as well, So having that solid foundation and having that mindset and those sort of best practice, upfront, uh, how you specify the project, how you think about, growth from a data point of view, I think really helps the app handle growth from a data and a usage point of view down the line. And you can always
So
add,
if
sorry, and just one more point is you can always, add more, in terms of like the hosting, more scalability, more resources, because you also don't want to over, engineer the hosting component, because it costs money, right? So you kind of want to have, a good fit for the start, but as the app and the usage grows, you can always increase the hosting resources and scalability from that point of view. Sorry, Michael, over to you.
no, no, it's okay. I'm glad you expanded on that. So, how would you approach for those founders or those people, developers with ideas that want to build a digital app or start a product, but they don't really necessarily have the technical foundation?
So I think that it's all about taking that vision that's in their head and extrapolating that somehow, right? So you can even use AI tools these days. I think it's actually quite nice to visualize your product. So like things like Replit or Lovable, we've seen a lot of people come to us with those. They've built something on Lovable, and it's taken their idea further than just a concept in their head, and it's expanded that to something visual that they can play with. It's a little bit tangible. They can run through different steps, but it's not really production grade ready. I wouldn't go to market with it. Um, so I think that if we had this conversation maybe a year or two ago, I wouldn't have said that, but I think that's a good way for founders. We help clients scope out their project in terms of we do discovery. So, we'll workshop their idea, we'll challenge them on certain things, we'll suggest certain things that they haven't thought about based on our experience. And we basically architect the scope of work, the MVP and future phases in a sort of discovery engagement that happens at the start of the project. So I don't know if that I've answered your question, but I've sort of given you two different ways of tackling that.
Oh, you definitely. So to kind of expand upon that, so with your years of experience with this and dealing with, technical and non-technical founders, what are some of the biggest mistakes you see them making at the start? And then what are some of the successes you've seen as well?
Some of the mistakes I would say are that they try and pack too many things into their MVP. So founders are very proud, they're very passionate about their product, and sometimes they're a little bit ego driven and they want to have these little bells and whistles and these nice to haves. And it's not always needed, right? So I think really keeping it simple, this whole MVP principle, a minimum viable product. If it's not going to solve the core problem that you're trying to solve, don't include it. You can always bring it in later, but keep it simple. It's going to keep the founder's costs down. I think other things are, I think, yeah, I think also maybe even, we kind of touched on it at the beginning, getting validation from their potential user base. Are they actually validating their idea, or are they just kind of building something, hoping, that if I build it, they'll come? And I think then you've got to kind of pivot or change direction during development or after the MVP, and that's more costly and time consuming. And I think a really big mistake that I see is that a lot of founders, you know, they've they've seen a niche problem or a niche problem, as you say in the States. They've come up with a solution. Hopefully, they've been in that industry, and that's always, a lot more success guaranteed from that. But they think that they'll build a product, and once it's launched, the floodgates are going to open. And I've seen that where founders that have allocated a lot of budget, they've thought about marketing, they've thought about how am I going to acquire customers, they do really, really well. And others that think that, okay, I'm just going to launch this to the world and I'm going to get lots of clients and users and subscribers, that generally doesn't work, and inevitably the product fails. So I think marketing is really, really important, and to think about it even before development. Yeah.
So if you could sum all of that up and say the top three things founders should do when starting to build a product, a mobile app, what would be
Mm.
your top three picks?
Yeah, I think it's what I said, I think product market fit, are you really building something that's going to solve a problem, or are you building something for a problem that doesn't really exist? Keep it simple. So, keep it MVP, keep it as, launch as easy as possible, and don't launch with bugs. I don't like that. I think there's this it's a little bit common in the industry to go, let's launch, get it to market, even if it's full of bugs, then we'll fix the bugs as it's live. I'm not a fan of that. I think you've got a really good opportunity to make a very strong first impression. And if your impression is not good because of bugs and, errors and things like that, I think you actually blow your chances of wowing that user. And then I think the marketing thing, I think that's a big thing. Yeah.
So I have one more follow-up, and I'll pass it back to Rob. So I'm a big QA guy. I like test-driven development myself. And in the world of mobile apps, there's a lot of different tools out there for doing mobile testing, A/B testing, things of that nature. Any suggestions that you have, or any of particular tools you like to help test your mobile apps?
So there are quite a few different tools. I think we're using like Selenium. There's some other tools that we're using. We're still also doing quite a bit of manual testing. I think these tools don't pick everything up, and I think there's a lot of intricacies that need to be thought about from a user's point of view. Um, yeah, and you can obviously write things like unit tests as well, but that takes a lot of time. It's almost as much time as it is to build the product itself. So it sometimes doesn't, from a value and cost point of view, doesn't warrant it. So I think it's a balance of human-based testing and that sort of functional testing and visual testing, interface testing, and then using some sort of automated testing as well. But keen to hear from your side, like what's working for you and what tools you're prescribing to your clients.
So a lot of the tools I use kind of depend on which device. Like if you're doing Android, the Android Studios has actually a pretty good test suite built into it. Catalan is another one that's pretty good. I've used Selenium in the past, and there's a couple other ones. It also depends on the language I found. Like if you're using React, Expo's really good. It has some really good test tools in it for testing a lot of mobile apps along that nature. The biggest thing that I struggle with, especially with mobile development, I don't know if you've run into this, but when you build mobile apps, do you pick a language like Android or iOS, or do you tend to go for the more open platforms where you build once and deploy anywhere?
Yeah, we typically go more the hybrid app route or the progressive web app route. So we're not building in native. So it is typically build once, deployed to iOS, to Android. And in South Africa, we've got Huawei, which is a Chinese operating system, but I don't think it's very popular in the US. A lot of people look at me when I tell them that, and they don't even know what I'm talking about. But it's actually similar to Android, the App Store and the operating system.
Oh, let's go back to, let to swing back a little bit on the ideas of talking about MVPs and stuff like that, because you touched on something that's actually something we've run across many times is where you're building an MVP, we're working with somebody on an MVP, and it's just keeping the M part of that becomes very challenging because they want to push something else in. They're like, well, what would it take to just like let's just put this one extra feature in. And you've also mentioned that something that I'm starting to see as well is sort of a rise of the no code MVP kind of thing, where like a founder or a visionary or somebody has sat down and they've put something together that is, it's not production grade as you mentioned, but it sort of works. It's a clickable demo, maybe a little better than that. Have you found that there's more pushback now that there's people have sort of gotten their hands dirty? Do you see a little more pushback and a little more of a how hard can that be to like just let's go add that feature in? Or has it still managed to be roughly the same kind of conversations you've had in the past?
I think it depends on a case by case basis. I think it also depends on the feature and if it makes sense to include it and how big is that feature or how small it is and what impact will that have on the launch or the value to the user. And then in terms of your question about the are people getting their hands dirty? Yeah, I think a lot of people are getting their hands dirty. So they're playing with these tools, these AI tools, Lovable and Replit, and they're taking their idea to a certain point, but they're not developers or engineers by trade. So there's a lot of things they don't know to think about, right? And
Mhm.
they don't know to even prompt these things, let alone will that be correct or not. So I think that's our job as developers is to think of, the exceptions. What happens when something fails? What happens when there's this strange possibility, and how does the user journey get impacted by that? So from a functionality point of view and a user journey point of view. Um, so I think that's where there's a lot of shortcomings, and yeah, so it's got its place. I think these clickable prototypes or these proof of concepts are good, and I think it's good to help them, as I mentioned earlier, to take their vision and to sort of visually see what they can do, and maybe take it to some stakeholders, get some feedback, get some buy-in or pushback, and that's maybe a way to validate, if I had to build this properly, would you use it? Would you pay for it? What would you be comfortable paying to subscribe to this kind of platform?
Yeah, I was wondering if that, because that's, there's in the past we've had situations we'll do like a clickable demo or a proof of concept, and it looks good enough that they're like, well, why can't we ship it now? It's one of those where there's a disconnect between production grade software and something that you rip together over a weekend or anything like that. I'm wondering, are you seeing them, and particularly because this gets into the concept of AI and people thinking that AI is going to take all the developer jobs and some of those kinds of fears that are out there. Are you finding that founders and owners are more respective, guess respectful of software development now as they sort of get into it and realize that like they're like, okay, I'm ready to hand this over to you because I know I'm beyond my depth? Or is there more of that like, well, I could probably do this myself, but I'll let you guys do it because you may do it a little bit better?
Yeah, I think there is a lot of respect for developers, especially if you don't have a tech background and you kind of vibe coding this application, and then you change something in some place and then something else breaks, and we've seen that a lot, and it's quite frustrating for the founders. But what I think it's done is it's actually created more opportunities, so people who would never sort of entertain the idea of building a product and trying to take it to market, now they can actually do that, or take that concept, out of their head, and take kick the can a little bit further down the line. And then if they're getting traction, maybe they go to an investor and say, listen, this is what I've put together. I've spoken to these 20 people. They've shown interest. Do you want to back me with some money? And then they know they need to build it properly. Yeah, I think the other thing to consider is the security, the cybersecurity of these web applications. I don't know if you've seen these videos of these hackers, and then how they just, these AI lovable, whatever, these vibe coded tools. These hackers are just having a field day. It's like a little playground for them where they can just get API keys and, break these apps. And yeah, there's quite a few videos about that as well. So that's obviously a massive concern, which again, a non-tech founder has got no idea about that, and they can find out the hard way and the painful way. Yeah, which is kind of sad, but it is the reality of the world that we live in.
Yeah, you've got to watch. I mean, that's the challenge with security is that there's people out there trying to get you, even when you don't think you think you're too small or you're not a target. It's easy to get a target on your back, and especially stuff like that. It, it's too easy for them now to put together, like whip together a little app and then have a little back door in it or something like that. And the next thing you know, you've put this out there and taken advantage of some people that aren't really paying attention enough. So it's sort of using the traditional, the tried and true methods to get your apps and things like that are probably going to be more important than ever. And that is where we're going to pause right now. So that is part one of our episode, and or part one of our interview, and we will coming back next episode with part two, continue our discussion with Angelo and get into actually even more of the esoteric parts of web and application development. Definitely getting a little geekier, a little more detailed this time than we have in a couple of the prior ones. Well, I guess we did geek out a little bit on AI on a few of those, but definitely down into a little bit more of the coding side of this. But there are definitely some really good entrepreneurial points that get brought up along the way as well, particularly if you're thinking about building some sort of a solution and whether you're thinking like, oh, an app would be really cool versus a web application. We will talk about that. And if you stick around after the next one, there might be some bonus material that has something to do with that. And again, it's one of those I think is very important for you to think about that before you dive in, because we all know once you start writing a lot of code and sort of building something out, it's hard to just say, no, I'm going to trash this and start over on a completely different platform. That being said, we're going to wrap this one up, let you get back to your day. So go out there and have yourself a great day, a great week, and we will talk to you next time.